In Warframe, we have plenty of amazing primaries. In today's video, I'm gonna be summing them up into a top 10 list for Steel Path. You can use these weapons with any Warframe, and you know that they will never let you down even when Acolytes appear. So if that sounds interesting, let's get into it. With the many different changes, the status elements, the damage types, the enemy health, enemy armor, new weapons being added in, the roster has definitely changed up. How? Well, watch the video and you will find out. And also, further down the line, you have a little snippet me talking about the list in general in further detail. But for now, all you need to know is Revenant is our test dummy. We use him for Mesmer Skin, and the only useful thing for Revenant, I'm sorry Revenant mains, I love you, but Mesmer Skin is of course his best ability. This is the build that I use. I do not buff my weapons in any sort of way. I do not even have a companion, meaning I have vacuum basically off limits, and I run out of ammo sometimes. So basically that seems like a me problem, not a you problem, just so you know. I do also have Roar down there as an ability, but whoever finds me actually using it throughout the gameplay, put it in the chat. I'm very interested because I'm 99% sure it's not gonna happen if I actually don't mess up the editing. But for now, that's all you need to know. Without any more delays, let's get into the list. At number 10, we have our beloved Kuva Ogress. I've been using this weapon more and more recently from the Jade Shadows update, where we got new mods, of course new element changes as well, and I've discovered that this weapon is incredibly good and even better now than it was before, making it on my list this year, and definitely a good weapon to use. Now the build, and of course when inevitably, because it will come the incarnate weapons, with the evolutions will be running up on screen. If there's something important, I will mention it, but other than that, either you can use these builds or you can use your own. It is up to you. I will mention some deviations when they do come across. The progenitor was Toxin, so I have base Toxin on this weapon. The best two things that I've realized is a Nightwatch Napalm combined with a Rifle Elementalist. Nightwatch Napalm is pretty much a must on this weapon, turning your small nukes into even bigger nukes, even nuking more, which is very, very good. We're actually not going for critical chance here, we're going for pure damage, because it is not a critical based weapon, so that is what you should focus on, just pure damage and elemental damage as well. This weapon is just a lot of fun. Just jumping around, throwing bombs that turn into smaller bombs is incredibly good and incredibly fun, and that will be sort of your gameplay pretty much in Steel Path, but there will be a couple of differences as well. But incredibly good weapon, viral, blast, heat, and that's what I went for, and it is really, really fun. No real downsides. I guess the worst side is probably because it's not the best against Acolytes, but it can kill them without any trouble. It will save you, don't worry about that. But moving on to number 9. At number 9, we have the original incarnate. It is the Fenmore, the single shot rifle turned into a machine gun, and one where you do not have to aim. You have plenty enough ammo to basically hold down your left click, look in the general vicinity of the enemies, and they're pretty much going to disappear. Now, you might be wondering and looking all of those white numbers. Well, that is because of the build and the evolution. Of course, the build up on screen, I use Corrosive Heat. This weapon does apply a lot of slash procs as well, so viral is very, very viable, but don't go for critical because of the evolutions, which are you're going to be seeing up on the screen, even though I said I'm not going to focus on that much. But the fifth one is very important. 2000% extra damage on non-critical hit, that is very, very good. This is what does most of the damage, and combined with Corrosive Heat, it is going to be very, very efficient. Acolytes do seem like a menace sometimes, but if you can survive and aim well, they're pretty much going to disappear and not bother you anymore. The reload, in my opinion, is a little bit slow. It takes a little bit of time to transition to the incarnate form, but other than that, which you can increase with the reload speed of course, is everything else is pretty much amazing about this weapon. I love using this when I don't want to look in just anywhere. Just hold down my left click and kill everything that's in front of me. But moving on to number 8. At number 8, we have the second Incarnate of the day. Yes, it is the Burston. This weapon turns from a really... I remember using this weapon a long time ago, it was incredibly bad. Now, from a burst rifle, when you charge up the Incarnate form, especially if you do it by headshots and focus on a headshot critical build, you will be very, very happy. Because of the evolutions, turning this into basically a machine gun firing heat AoE blaster, with especially this build where you do massive amounts of crit damage and you just have to move your mouse left to right and everything dies. This weapon is incredibly good. The evolutions, of course, with every single one of these weapons help out a lot, making these older weapons incredibly good. Like, for example, this weapon, you can see there is a sea of red in front of you. The Acolyte just basically is kissing me, and I'm still shooting him with my Burston and making him disappear in a couple of seconds. So if you can survive a couple of seconds with your Warframe, this weapon will definitely save you. It is incredibly good, and this is one of the, I guess, best recommendations that I can possibly give, of course, alongside everything else. But let's move on to number 7. At number 7, we have one of my favorite weapons, and one of the weapons that has been shining in one of these lists always. It is the Tenant Arca Plasmor. We have a cold on my Tenant Arca Plasmor, and this weapon is just incredibly fun. The shotgun mechanic of where it's basically a wall of plasma doing radiation, it's not doing magnetic, radiation, alongside, of course, viral and, of course, hunter munitions. This weapon is incredibly good. The shots and the plasma actually bounces around, it does even more damage, has punch through as well, and can land headshots. It is incredibly good. If the initial shot doesn't kill the enemies, of course, slash procs will definitely kill it in a couple of seconds. Look away and the enemies are basically gone. This weapon is a lot of fun, and it's not that hard to get, so I do like this weapon. I definitely enjoyed having the base variant as well, which I do highly recommend, not for Steel Path, but in base Star Chart. So we're gonna move on to the number 6 spot. In the number 6 spot, we have the Boltor Prime Incarnate. This was my first ever Prime weapon in the game, and I loved it ever since. I have used it many times, and with this Incarnate adapter, this weapon basically turns into a puncture firing, I guess, projectiles firing slash. So you do primarily slash now, you fire faster, and your already good Boltor Prime, I guess good, it turns even better with the adapter itself. Now, with this, I'm actually using something a little bit different. Now, I'm gonna show you guys the build, and you can see it there. I use Radiated Reload and Cold. Cold has been changed, and now it enhances your critical damage, so that is very juicy and slows down the enemies, meaning this weapon has become incredibly good at slowing down enemies, getting massive amounts of red crits, and just killing everything. The radiation is here, of course, mostly for the reload, and also it is here just to give us radiation, crowd controlling, so make it, I guess, a little bit more fun. Because of the slash, you can put viral as well, but having a Panzer would be incredibly good, or even a Nourish, so that even on your Warframe you can make maximum benefits from this weapon. But we're gonna be moving on to the number 5 spot. At number 5, we have the tried, the true, and the tested Kuva Brahma. This weapon can handle any nerf, anything DE throws at it, this weapon will handle it. I don't know how long this weapon has been in use. I probably even further along than the Tenant Arca Plasmor. Actually, it is definitely, because it came out earlier, but this weapon just doesn't want to give up. I actually made a full video on this weapon, so you can check that out if you do want to. It's the little eye up there, but with this build, I just went all explosions as much as I possibly can. This is Kuva Ogress, but on steroids. I am in love with this weapon, and it's a bow. It just looks incredibly good. A lot of people have trouble with the ammo. Put on, what's it called? The helmet ability, I actually forgot. The energized munitions. You can put on that, or just use an arrow mutation mod. This weapon is incredibly good. You should definitely have this in your arsenal if you're just any kind of Warframe player. So, that was our number 5 spot, and I am using heat on this. So, there you go, now you know. But we're gonna be moving on to number 4. At number 4, we have the, I guess, widest spread bow maybe in Warframe, probably. It is the Nautaruk. This is actually a bow that everyone could obtain, of course, by completing a quest. This is incredibly good. Infinite ammo. You have 3 different shots where if you land it perfectly, you have the best possible stats with a massive amount of critical damage, infinite body punch through, as I mentioned, infinite ammo. This weapon is one of the best weapons that you can possibly give out for an end of a quest, and also to basically everyone that does it, because it's free. It's incredibly good that everybody could get this. This is the build that I went for. Of course, headshots are very important, and I do have Prime Shred for faster fire rate, so basically making this weapon into missile launching weapon, I guess, but arrows, you know. It is incredibly fun and really good to use. You actually can fire through some I guess objects as well, so that's pretty cool. But this weapon is in general one of the best weapons you can possibly have, and you can have it if you complete the quest. I actually forgot what quest it was because I didn't follow it, but what you guys should follow is the number 3 spot. At number 3 we have the Torrid Incarnon. This is I think most used weapon at the moment. I haven't been laying my hands off of this weapon. This weapon is the first weapon that I tested out. You can see it up on the screen right now. We have Corrosive in Blast on this weapon. Blast is incredibly good at the moment on some specific weapons, and Torrid being one of them. Of course, as I probably did mention, if I didn't, I put the thing with the burst in as well. You can use Blast, but with the Torrid, it's just so good. This weapon is so much fun to use. This is one of the easiest weapons to charge up because it fires off grenades where you hit the body, it charges up in a couple seconds, and you can go on more and more using the Toxin Beam to basically just melt everything around you. This is if the Burstin was a beam weapon. If the Burstin was a beam weapon, it would be this. The Torrid is incredibly good. This is the best beam weapon in the game, in my opinion. Of course, I will give some honorable mentions later down the line, but we're gonna be moving on to number 2. The Strun Incarnon is at number 2. This is actually my favorite weapon next to another one which I will mention, but I love using this weapon. This is the only weapon in the game that I have actually spent platinum on a Riven for. I do not use the Riven build. The build that I use is up on the screen right there, but I love using this weapon. It is incredibly fun. First, it's a shotgun, which is incredibly fun to use in my opinion. It is a semi-auto one, which is very cool, and you charge up the Incarnon form, get those beautiful headshots, and then it fires off a projectile that basically does explode and does such a massive amount of viral and slash in my case that everything basically disappears. This is my stat stick weapon, I guess you could call it, for my Wisp. This is the weapon that I run with my Wisp because it is incredibly fun and good to use. The slash and the viral on this weapon with this build is incredibly good. It is quite difficult to charge up the Incarnon form sometimes. That's the only thing that I don't like. Seems like sometimes it actually doesn't even charge, but in general, I love this weapon. We are gonna actually move on to the honorable mentions. There are many primaries, of course, and the honorable mentions are gonna have to go to the Cedo, for example. This weapon is incredibly good at priming enemies for condition overload builds, and also just killing enemies. We have the Exceltra Prime, which you might have seen the gameplay, alongside the Phantasma Prime, alongside the Felarx, for example. Those weapons are incredibly good as well. The Trumna, the Tenant, Galaxian, the Kuvazar, the Proboscis, Cernos, all those weapons are incredibly good. If I were to put honorable mentions, it would just be too long, so I'm gonna stick with those. If I forgot some, I'm sorry, but what I wanted to mention at the beginning of the video, you might be noticing a lot of Incarnon weapons. That is how the game is at the moment. Most of the top tier weapons are older weapons that have gotten Incarnon adapters, like most of the weapons on the list, and I find this to be sort of, I guess, a good thing because power creep is, mitigated through the Incarnon system, but it is the top tier of weapons, and these are probably the only weapons in game that can kill acolytes reliably and kill a lot of enemies when you are, for example, not using your Warframe abilities. So, honorable mentions and of course this little tidbit. Hope you enjoyed. Let's move on to the first spot. Of course, we were all expecting this bad boy, the Electron Prime Incarnon. I've actually used the Electron Wraith Incarnon running for the longest time, even though I had the Prime variant, and I finally decided it is time to make this weapon shine. First off, this is the third Prime weapon that I've ever had, and it was basically a single shot rifle until DE with the Incarnate Evolutions, and of course with my build up on the screen right now, you were able to turn this into a missile launching that actually bounce around in the room, armor stripping, puncture, needle, rocket thingies. I have no idea what these are, but they bounce around, armor strip enemies, do so much damage that they basically just clear out rooms in instants. I love this weapon. If you don't want to use any Warframe abilities, if you literally want to run like I'm in the background with the Revenant, this is the weapon to go. I love this weapon. I use this honestly almost never, but I love using it when I do use it because I know I'm gonna have no trouble lasting till level 9999 with this weapon. But of course, you can use this with, or I guess do that with any single one of these weapons, with some a little bit less, but with some a little bit more. But of course, that is Warframe in it of itself. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, do leave a like, a comment, and do subscribe for more. I've enjoyed making this, hope you enjoyed watching this. This has been your lovely host, the Gaming Weasel, and I'm over and out.